Chapter 521. Li Manman recognized Huang and Yuan, and also recognized the girl by his side. She unconsciously stopped and turned around. She didn't know if she should tell Gu Xingyin or tell them to change paths. But Gu Xingyin had already seen it. Gu Xingyin wasn't the only one who saw this. The people around her also saw this scene clearly. Gu Xingyin's face instantly turned pale. These days, no matter what rumors she heard, no matter what people said about Huang and Yuan and Qing Luochun, she had always comforted herself that it was all fake. But seeing the two of them being so intimate, she couldn't lie to herself anymore. The little girl's eyes were wide open as she stared at the two of them not far away. Even she didn't expect tears to fall down her cheeks. It was probably because the disbelief and pain in her eyes were too strong that the girl by her side panicked and quickly went to her side to comfort her. Li Manman took out a tissue from her bag and helped Gu Xingyin wipe the tears that couldn't be stopped. Gu Xingyin didn't move at all as she let her wipe, but her eyes stubbornly looked over there. Li Manman said with heartache, Xian, don't cry. You're this sad and the two of them are still there. It's not worth it. She seemed a bit angry as she said this. She handed the tissue to the other girl and angrily said, No. I have to ask Huang and Yuan, how did our Xian let him down? How could she do this kind of thing? When she turned around, she found that the shameless couple was kissing each other. Li Manman was stunned. She unconsciously turned back to look at Gu Xingyin. She found that she was tightly pursing her lips and her tears had stopped, but her eyes were still a bit red. In her eyes, there was no sadness and shock from before. There was only darkness and a deathly stillness. This kind of Gu Xingyin seemed to be fine, but it made people feel even more heartache. Gu Shirley, who had been standing on the side without making a sound, suddenly gave a cold snort. This kind of man, what's there to ask? She directly walked towards the two of them who were kissing and forcefully separated them. Huang and Yuan and Qing Luochun were being lovey-dovey with each other when they were caught off guard. They were embarrassed and angry. Huang on Yuan blushed and turned his head. Who's so short? Pa. What he got in return was a resounding slap. Gu Shirley waved his hand and looked at him with disdain. Scum. She turned around and looked at Qing Luochun on the other side, who had been shocked by this unforeseen event. She gave him another slap in the face. Pa. Gu Shirley glanced at her contemptuously and spat out. B***tch. She sneered and reached out her hand to point at the two of them. The two of you are quite compatible. Qing Luochun came back to her senses and realized that she had been slapped in front of everyone. She turned around and looked around. Sure enough, she saw many people looking at her. She felt a huge sense of shame surround her. She covered her face and screamed, Gu Shirley, you dare to hit me? Gu Shirley didn't even bat an eyelid. You're so shameless, so what if I hit you? Qing Luochun was so angry that her tears were about to fall. She unconsciously turned to look at Huang and Yuan. At this time, girls hoped that their boyfriends would stand up for them. Who knew that when she looked over, she would see Huang and Yuan looking in a direction in a daze. She had a bad feeling in her heart. Chapter 522. Sure enough, Qing Luochun followed Huang and Yuan's gaze and saw a familiar figure. Changxian. Qing Luochun and Changxian had never officially met before. But Qing Luochun was very familiar with this girl. Ever since she fell in love with Huang on Yuan, she had done a lot of research on this girl who was said to be his childhood sweetheart for more than 10 years. Qing Luochun had always been very confident in herself. She felt that this little girl who hadn't grown up, yet would only be defeated if she met her. But seeing Huang and Yuan like this, seeing him looking at Changxian with a worried and guilty gaze, this was the first time she wasn't confident in her own charm. And Yuan, you're just going to let this woman bully me? She said in dissatisfaction, trying to call back Huang and Yuan's thoughts. Huang and Yuan looked at Gu Shirley and didn't know what to say. Gu Shirley looked like he was venting for Xian. He was indeed in the wrong. Qing Luochun sneered. Huang and Yuan, Qing Luochun didn't want all the boys who pursued me and chose you. Can't you act like a man at this crucial moment? She saw Huang on Yuan's conflicted expression, but he still looked at Changxian from time to time. She only felt wronged and ashamed in her heart. Do you think that your girlfriend will continue to be with you after seeing the two of us like this? These words seemed to wake Huang and Yuan up. His expression shook, and he didn't care about Qing Luochen and Gu Shirley. He quickly walked over to Gu Xingyin. Qing Luochen was left alone, and she was so angry that her tears were about to fall. Gu Shirley crossed his arms and sneered. See, you tried so hard to get between the two of them, but in reality, what do they think you are? The most important thing in Huang and Yuan's heart is still Xian Xian. She said this, but she was a bit worried. What if Xian Xian was convinced by Huang and Yuan and still wanted to be with him? Gu Shirley sighed in his heart. Although it was her freedom to choose, if Xian Xian really chose to be with Huang and Yuan, he would be disappointed. She didn't like to study and her family situation was complicated. She saw some things more clearly than good children who only wanted to study. Men were the most unreliable things. This was especially true for someone like Huang Anyuan, who had learned to have a foot in two boats in high school. He wasn't someone who could live a long life together. Huang Anyuan came to Gu Xingyin's side. His face still had the handprint of Gu Shirley's slap. He looked extremely ridiculous. Xian Xian, listen to my explanation. Huang Anyuan opened his mouth and said. Gu Xingyin looked at him calmly. There was no joy or anger in her voice. Explain that I've been watching you guys for so long and that the person holding hands with Qing Luochen isn't you? Or is it our misconception that the two of you kissed each other? Huang Anyuan's face was pale. He had never seen Xian Xian like this before. In his impression, Xian Xian had smiled at him, cried and acted coquettishly. However, he had never seen her like this before. It was as though she was looking at something unbearable. I was wrong. Huang Anyuan looked at Gu Xingyin with a sincere gaze and admitted his mistake without hesitation. Xian Xian, can you forgive me this once, considering our relationship of more than 10 years? Chapter 523. Gu Xingyin didn't say anything. Huang Anyuan looked at her nervously. He really liked her. Just as he said, more than 10 years of feelings couldn't be given up so easily. Even Huang Anyuan himself had imagined that he would start a family with Changxian in the future. In the future he envisioned, he had never left Changxian. But how ridiculous it would be if word got out that he liked her and wanted to marry her. But he couldn't resist the temptation of another woman. Gu Xingyin looked at Huang Anyuan. She made her own response. Slap. Just like Gu Shirley's slap, she also slapped Huang Anyuan. Seeing Huang Anyuan looking at her in disbelief, Gu Xingyin smiled. I'm sorry, Huang Anyuan. You're not that shameless. Huang Anyuan. This was the first time in Changxian's life that she called him by his full name. Why should I, Changxian, suffer and forgive someone like you? Just like you said, we have more than 10 years of feelings. You can ignore this and trample on our more than 10 years of feelings. Why should I suffer for it? You owe me that slap just now. Huang Anyuan, we're finished, Gu Xingyin said. She turned around and walked toward the exit without looking back. Li Shirley slowly chased after their feelings. Gu Shirley also walked over. When he passed by Huang Anyuan, he sighed and said, I didn't expect Xian Xian to have such a strong temper despite looking so small and soft. Not bad, I like it. Huang Anyuan didn't move and let her ridicule him. Gu Shirley didn't spend much effort on him. He walked in the direction Gu Xingyin left. Gu Xingyin's eyes were red when she left. The tears that she had just held back fell instantly. She found a secluded bench and lay down on it, crying her heart out. Li Man and the others didn't stop her this time. Although Xian Xian seemed to leave freely, they all knew how much this girl had liked Huang Anyuan before. The more deeply she liked him, the more pain she felt when she left. Until Gu Xingyin raised her head. The tears on her face had been wiped clean. She smiled at them and said, I'm sorry. I wanted to invite you out to play, but I didn't expect to encounter such a disappointing situation. Gu Shirley snorted. You know how precious my time is. In the end, I spent more than an hour watching you cry. Gu Xingyin smiled embarrassedly, but her eyes were resolute. Don't worry, big sister Shirley. This is definitely the last time I cry for him. From now on, we have nothing to do with each other at night. Gu Shirley smiled. It's good that you think that way. How old are you? He had only met a piece of trash. Our Xian Xian is such a cute girl. She will definitely meet a boyfriend who will love her the most in the world. Li Man also chimed in. Sister Shirley is right. Huang Anyuan losing you is his regret. Our Xianxian will definitely meet someone better in the future. Gu Xingyin thought that she had already met the best. She smiled embarrassedly. What nonsense are you talking about? I don't want to think about these things now. I should study hard and get into a good university. Li Man pouted. You still have to study hard. I think you can get into a good university with your eyes closed. Her tone was full of jealousy. The others also joked and tried to make Gu Xingyin feel better. A good university. Which university would Lu Yu get into? Chapter 524. The news of Chang Xian and Huang Anyuan breaking up quickly spread throughout the school. It wasn't that Li Man and the others were gossiping, but that the two of them were too obvious. In the past, as long as something happened to Huang Anyuan or the basketball team, Chang Xian would be the first one to rush over. But now, when people who didn't know the situation called her to watch a game, they were all rejected. Not to mention that Huang Anyuan had been standing outside the classroom for the past few days. Anyone with a discerning eye could see who he was waiting for. But Huang Anyuan had been standing there for so many days and Gu Xingyin didn't even look at him. Everyone connected the rumors that had been spreading around the school not long ago. And of course they understood what was going on. Since Gu Xingyin took over Chang Xian's body, her relationship with her classmates had become much more harmonious. She was cute and had good grades. She didn't find it troublesome to help her classmates solve any problems they had. Everyone in the class laughed and said that Xian was now the treasure of the class. Now the treasure of the class was wronged. That's right, even if it looked like Gu Xingyin had dumped Huang Anyuan, the people of the class all agreed that Huang Anyuan had wronged Gu Xingyin. The truth was just like that. Bullying someone and still daring to come to class one's territory, if they didn't mess with you, who would they mess with? As a result, the students on duty in Class 1 became unprecedentedly diligent. When class was over, as long as Huang Anyuan appeared outside Class 1, the students on duty in Class 1 felt that the corridor outside the classroom seemed to be a little dirty. Every time they mopped the floor, the students would always accidentally throw the dirty mop onto him. Huang Anyuan didn't even have time to get angry before he received a sincere smile and an apology. Ah, this student, I'm really sorry, I didn't see you here, he. How could Huang Anyuan not understand that the people of Class 1 didn't like him? But there was no other way, Xian was here. If he didn't wait for her to say something, he wouldn't give up. It wasn't that Qing Luochen didn't come looking for him during this time, but his heart was filled with Chang Xian. Every time she went over, it made Qing Luochen very angry, so she went to vent her anger on her own. A week later, Huang Anyuan still refused to leave the classroom. Everyone in Class 1 was annoyed by him. That day, a girl who went out with Gu Xingyin to play and saw him kissing Qing Luochen decided to go all the way and did something sinister. She wrote a small note and placed a copy in Huang Anyuan and Qing Luochen's office. The content was that the two of them were in a relationship. It was commonly known as snitching. A key high school like No. 3 High School had always been very strict about students falling in love at a young age. Previously, Huang Anyuan's homeroom teacher probably knew about the matter between Huang Anyuan and Chang Xian. However, after understanding the situation of the two and knowing that the parents of the two families had tacitly agreed to it, he didn't care too much. But now that it was Huang Anyuan and Qing Luochen, it was different. Puppy love. Discipline, he must be severely disciplined. Students should prioritize their studies. This kind of thing must be notified to the parents. At noon the next day, Huang Anyuan, who would appear at the door of Class 1 every day, was nowhere to be seen. Gu Xingyin received the message from the system and almost fainted from laughing. Chapter 525. When Huang Anyuan's father received a call from Huang Anyuan's class teacher saying that his son was in a relationship, he didn't take it seriously. As his parents, how could they not see the relationship between his son and Xian? Xian's grades were good and she was well behaved. He and his wife were very satisfied. But since his son's class teacher had called, it was better to go. However, when Father Huang arrived at school and listened to the teacher, he found that there was something wrong with the girl who was in a relationship with his son. Sorry teacher, can I ask who is the girl? With R and Yuan? Huang and Yuan's class teacher pushed up his glasses and coughed. It's a second-year female student. I'm sorry, Mr. Huang, we can't disclose the student's information. Second year? Then it wasn't Xian. This stinky brat. The only thing Father Huang wanted to do now was to take out his belt and give his son a good beating. Huang and Yuan's walking posture was a bit strange when he arrived at school the next day. Qing Luochun said that she had taken a week off. When Gu Xingyin returned home at night, she found that Mother Chang and Father Chang's expressions weren't very good. Gu Xingyin thought for a bit and knew that the Huang family had come over. But since they didn't say anything, Gu Xingyin of course wouldn't take the initiative to mention this matter. After dinner, the family sat in the living room watching the news. Mother Chang came over with cut fruits and finally couldn't help but speak. Xian, Yuan and Yuan that child. Mother Chang hesitated. Although they knew about the two children's matters in their hearts as parents, they had never talked about it on the surface. Gu Xingyin picked up an apple and took a bite. It was sweet and juicy. She swallowed the apple in her mouth and said, I know that father and mother knew about the matter between me and him, but it's all in the past now. Father and mother, don't worry, I will study hard and never think about this kind of thing again. Father Chang and Mother Chang looked at each other. They were worried that their daughter would be sad because of this matter. Why did it seem like their daughter was explaining to them now? But looking at her expression, it didn't seem like she was sad, so they were relieved. Perhaps his daughter was still young and didn't understand the feelings between men and women. Mom and Dad don't have anything else to say. But Xian, if you get bullied outside, don't keep it to yourself. Tell Mom and Dad, okay? Papa Chang said. Papa Chang rarely interacted with his daughter, but Gu Xingyin knew that his love for his daughter was no less than Mama Chang's. Got it, Gu Xingyin said with a smile. Your daughter is so cute. Others can't wait to adore her. How can they bear to bully me? Mrs. Chang chuckled. You're already so old, but you're still so shameless. Gu Xingyin didn't have any psychological burden when she acted cute. I'm just telling the truth. The Chang family was happy and harmonious, but the atmosphere in Huang and Yuan's house was not very good these few days. After Mr. Huang returned home from school that day, he told his wife about this matter. Mother Huang knew about her son's relationship with Xian. She didn't have any opinion about her future daughter-in-law being a girl like Xian. But her son had unexpectedly broken up with Xian, and even fell in love at such a young age. The husband and wife found out that their son was the one who cheated on her. Although it was their son's fault and it seemed like they couldn't be in-laws anymore, the relationship between the two families couldn't be thrown away. After the husband and wife visited the Chang family, as expected, the other side's attitude was very cold. Although Father Huang and Mother Huang were angry at their son, he was still their biological son. Most of their resentment was placed on Qing Luochun, who had seduced their son. Chapter 526. Huang and Yuan hadn't been doing well recently. Xian ignored him. He didn't know how the class teacher found out about him and Qing Luochun, but now she was watching him very closely. His dad wanted to beat him up whenever he saw him, and his back was still aching. What he couldn't stand the most was the way his classmates looked at him. Even his good friends from the basketball team looked at him with pity. It's not that I want to say this, brother, but you're not right. Little sister-in-law. Oh no, Chang Xian is such a good girl, but you don't know how to cherish her. I advised you to think about it. It was as if everyone was looking at him with the word scumbag in their eyes. There was once when he went to the school store to buy things, and saw Xian being surrounded by a large group of classmates from afar, with an undisguised happy look on her face. During this time, he had been annoyed by all kinds of things and had a trace of resentment towards Xian. If she hadn't been so determined to break up, how could he have fallen into such a situation? He had already admitted his mistake, and was just short of kneeling down and begging her. What else did she want? Everything was going wrong for him now, but she was doing well, living a very comfortable life. Thinking of this, Huang and Yuan's resentment towards Gu Xingyin became even deeper. If Gu Xingyin knew what he was thinking, she would definitely say, "This person's brain is probably sick." Everything was done by Huang and Yuan himself, But now things were out of his expectations, and he wanted to push all the blame onto others. Why don't you go to heaven? It was a coincidence. On this day, Lin City's first high school and third high school held a basketball tournament. Huang and Yuan, as the main force of the basketball team, naturally had to play. He didn't know why, but the guys from first high school seemed to have taken medicine today. They didn't even care about snatching the ball, and just wanted to block him. As long as he was about to get the ball, the opposing team would immediately put down their original positions and block him even if they lost the ball. Although third high school and first high school had always been competitors, but it wasn't to this extent, right? In the end, third high school won by a narrow margin. But from beginning to end, Huang and Yuan didn't even touch the ball. First high school's team had an excited look after the game, as if they weren't the ones who lost. A bunch of lunatics. Huang and Yuan cursed gloomily. You brat, who did you just say? One of the students from number 1 high school actually heard it. Just as number 1 high school was worrying about finding an excuse to cause trouble, Huang and Yuan came up with an excuse. The basketball team from number 1 middle school walked over aggressively. The leader looked at Huang and Yuan and said, "The reason why our two schools are competing in the league tournament is to promote our friendship. Third high school student, you're causing trouble." Friendship? Huang and Yuan cursed in his heart. What kind of friendship is there between me and you? He said coldly, "You're thinking too much." The people from number 1 high school were unhappy with his attitude. What do you mean by that? Do you think you're awesome? Scolding people after winning? Is this the quality of number 3 high school? Do you think our number 1 middle school is a pushover? He said, "If you don't apologize to us properly today, I'm telling you this isn't over." Huang and Yuan was only a 15 or 16-year-old boy. He couldn't stand being provoked by others, so his temper flared up when he heard that. "I'm not apologizing today, so what? A bunch of idiots. You really think you're a piece of cake in our number 3 high school's territory." Chapter 527. Gu Xingyin heard the news that Huang and Yuan had a conflict with the people from number 1 middle school on the basketball court. Later, the results came out. Huang and Yuan was the first to scold and provoke them. After all, number 1 middle school's students weren't from their school. The teachers from number 3 middle school informed their teachers to take them back. Huang and Yuan was given a demerit. The basketball captain of number 1 middle school went to look for Lu Yu after returning to school. "Genius Lu, we've already done as you said and taught that kid Huang and Yuan a lesson. Look, the notebook that you promised us." Lu Yu nodded. "I'll get Zhang Yin to send it to you later." The basketball captain smiled foolishly. There was no trace of the arrogance from before. "Okay, then I'll go first." As he walked, he was still muttering in his heart. He didn't know what Huang and Yuan did to provoke Genius Lu. After Lu Yu returned to the dormitory, he saw Zhang Yin with a sneaky smile behind the computer. "I say, Lu Yu, I heard that you specifically asked Zhang Chao and the others to cause trouble for Huang and Yuan during the competition. I remember that you're not familiar with him at all." Lu Yu took out a book and opened it. He said lightly, "I just don't like him." Zhang Yin said with a meaningful, "Oh," and said with a smirk, "Is it purely because you don't like him or because you want to stand up for a cute little girl?" Lu Yu glanced at him. "I've already sorted out my notes." Zhang Yin immediately reached out his hand and made a zipper over his mouth. I understand. I don't know anything. I won't say anything." Only then did Lu Yu lower his head to continue reading. Huang and Yuan finally didn't come looking for her again. Gu Xingyin only felt relieved. Being looked at with such a nostalgic and sad gaze every day was really disgusting. He was the one who cheated on her and fell in love with her. But he still had to pretend that his love was as deep as the sea. Those who didn't know would think that she was the one who had a change of heart. It was really disgusting. After school that day, Gu Xingyin was walking alone with his school bag. Changxian. Someone was calling her from afar. Gu Xingyin turned around and saw a familiar face. Qing Luochun. She planned to pretend that she didn't see it, but who knew that the other party would chase after her. "I want to talk to you, it won't take long." Qing Luochun's expression was very arrogant. A beauty like her indeed had the right to be arrogant. However, Gu Xingyin did not buy it at all. Qing Luochen saw that the other party was completely ignoring her, so she bit her lips. Just treat it as me begging you, alright, Chang Xian? Gu Xingyin stopped and looked at her. The two of them went to a coffee shop near the school. Gu Xingyin glanced around. The seats were separated by frosted glass. The entire shop was decorated in a very bourgeois manner. Of course, the price was also quite bourgeois. Qing Luochen's family condition was indeed not bad. Most students wouldn't choose to spend their money in this kind of place. Chang Xian, I know that you and Huang On Yuan were originally a couple, but didn't you break up already? Since you've already broken up, can you tell On Yuan to stop hanging out with you after you've broken up? I really like him, but now he can't settle down. He still misses you in his heart. Gu Xingyin raised her hand. Stop. She looked at Qing Luochen with a strange expression. So you came looking for me just to say this? Do you think that when I only gave Huang On Yuan a slap, was it unfair to you? Chapter 528. Gu Xingyin didn't even look at the expensive cup of coffee on the table. First, since you know that I have already broken up with him, then his matters have nothing to do with me, Chang Xian. Second, although I have broken up with Huang and Yuan, it doesn't mean that everything in the past has been written off. To you, Qing Luochen. Gu Xingyin looked at her and continued. A third party who comes between others, I don't like and hate it from the bottom of my heart. Third, you can't get Huang and Yuan's heart. This has nothing to do with me. It's you who is too useless. Please don't put the problem on me. I won't take the blame. Fourth, who you like, how much you like. These have nothing to do with me. Gu Xingyin stood up after saying this, and when she was about to leave, she looked at Qing Luochen again. Right, I hope that you don't look for me next time. It's best if you don't appear in front of me. Because next time, I can't guarantee that I'll have such a good rest to talk nonsense with you instead of pouring this thing on the table on your head. Gu Xingyin left without looking back, leaving Qing Luochen sitting there in a daze. Her face alternated between red and white. In fact, how could she not know that her behavior today was simply too much of a bully? But she was still imagining that Chang Xian was a very soft and cute girl. If she acted pitiful in front of her, what if her heart softened? She knew that her reputation wasn't good now. If Chang Xian was willing to say a few good words for her, her days in school would be much better. But she never thought that Chang Xian wasn't as soft as the rumors said. On the contrary, she was very eloquent. She was ridiculed by her and couldn't say anything to refute it. Qing Luochen thought about what Gu Xingyin said to her, and the more she thought about it, the angrier she got. She actually wanted Chang Xian to never appear in third high school. As long as she was no longer in third high school, then the matter between her and Huang On Yuan would gradually be forgotten, right? Gu Xingyin carried her school bag and walked slowly on the road. After walking for a while, she suddenly turned her head. Genius Lu, you've been following me for so long. Are you planning to treat me to dinner? Seeing the other party looking at him with a smile, Lu Yu's expression softened. Sure. He saw the other party's eyes widen a little, as if she didn't expect him to agree. He couldn't help but smile even more. What do you want to eat? Gu Xingyin's eyes curved, revealing the shallow dimples at the corner of her mouth. Genius Lu is treating me to a meal. How many people can have such an honor? Since you're treating, you can make the decision. Lu Yu thought for a moment and brought Gu Xingyin to a place. A noodle shop hidden in the depths of an alley. Gu Xingyin shook her head and said, There's an old saying, the fragrance of wine is hidden in the depths of the alley. I don't know if the noodles in the depths of the alley have the same effect. Lu Yu laughed when he heard this. He said, Don't worry, I won't let you down. The customers in the shop were very good, and the entire environment was very clean and tidy. The beef noodles they ordered were quickly served. It smells so good. Gu Xingyin couldn't help sniffing and took a sip of the soup. It's delicious. She narrowed her eyes in satisfaction. That expression was like a cat that got its favorite dried fish. Chapter 529. Lu Yu wanted to laugh when he saw her like this. How could there be a girl who could show so many different sides? He couldn't help saying, I saw you talking about that girl one by one. Looking at you now, if I didn't see it with my own eyes, I wouldn't believe that it was the same person. Gu Xingyin ate a mouthful of noodles. The noodles were chewy and the taste of the soup was all in. It was really delicious. She seriously replied, "You have to show the kind of attitude you want to show to the kind of person you are dealing with. That Qing Luo Chun, do you believe that if I don't show a strong side, she will think that I'm a soft persimmon that can be easily pinched?" She couldn't act like a sweet and innocent girl in front of her lover. Her true self had to be known by him. Lu Yu's focus wasn't on this at all. He said, "Then tell me, why are you like this in front of me?" "Pure, harmless, just like a delicate kitten." Gu Xingyin blinked and giggled as she said, "Because I know that you like me from the bottom of your heart. You're really good to me." She didn't hesitate at all when she said this, but Lu Yu's ears suddenly turned red. How could she say the word like in front of a boy so easily? Lu Yu struggled with himself for a bit, and found that Gu Xingyin's expression was very normal. There wasn't anything strange at all. Only then did he realize that the like she said was completely different from the like he understood. He thought this through and secretly laughed at himself. Lu Yu, people say that you're mature and steady. You're a general who won't change his expression even if MT Tai collapses in front of you. But who would have thought that you would be confused by a little girl's unintentional words? He put those thoughts aside and began to eat his noodles. After eating, Gu Xingyin was about to say goodbye to Lu Yu. "Thank you for the noodles. Next time when you're free, I'll treat you to a meal," Gu Xingyin said like they were good brothers. Lu Yu couldn't help revealing a smile. "Then I'll be waiting." Seeing that Gu Xingyin was about to leave, Lu Yu thought for a moment and called out to her. I heard about what happened between you and your boyfriend. Don't be sad, and even though your boyfriend isn't that great, there are still many good boys in this world. Just like me." Gu Xingyin smiled and said, "I know, I won't be sad for such a person. Of course there are good boys. For example, the genius Lu in front of me is handsome and gentle. He's cold on the outside but warm on the inside." Her last words could not be heard clearly as the girl ran away. Lu Yu stood in the afternoon sunset, watching the girl's figure get farther and farther away. Her shadow was pulled very long, with the infinite vitality of youth. His heart was beating very fast because of Gu Xingyin's last sentence. So in her heart, he was a handsome and gentle Prince Charming. A breeze that came out of nowhere lifted the corners of his lips and lingered there for a long time. Gu Xingyin, who flirted with her lover every day, was in a very good mood when she returned home. If she didn't meet someone waiting at her door, this good mood might have lasted for the whole night. "What are you doing here?" She put away the smile on her face and said coldly. Chapter 530. Huang and Yuan looked at her, and didn't know what kind of expression to show on his face. He thought about it and decided to get straight to the point. Xian, can you put in a good word for me in school? My reputation in school isn't good right now. Even my roommates don't care about me," he said to Gu Xingyin in what he thought was a very sincere manner. Xian, I've already apologized to you for what happened in the past. Let this matter pass and don't make things difficult for me anymore, alright? Gu Xingyin acted like it was her first time meeting him as she looked at Huang and Yuan from head to toe. "Huang and Yuan, did I slap you a little too lightly? You have to understand one thing. It's you who wronged me, not me who wronged you. I, Chang Xian, am not some holy white lotus. After being slapped in the face, I still have to smile and say that it's a good slap. Also, your reputation in school isn't good. This is your own doing. It has nothing to do with me. You don't have enough face for me to make things difficult for you. Now immediately, right now leave my house." Gu Xingyin finished and didn't care about him anymore. She took out her keys and opened the door. With a pung sound, Huang and Yuan was locked outside. This kind of person really made people feel vexed. Huang and Yuan didn't give up and shouted outside the door. "Chang Xian, you're really ruthless. We've been friends for more than 10 years, and you just threw it away like that. Crazy. Host, be careful tomorrow. Qing Luochen found someone to teach you a lesson." The system suddenly reminded her. Gu Xingyin nodded to show that she understood. The next day before school ended, she specially went to the second grade area to find Gu Shirli. Gu Shirli heard her intentions and raised his eyebrows in surprise before nodding. Gu Xingyin walked back alone. When she passed by a remote alley, she found that she was blocked by people. There were gangsters on both sides dressed in non-mainstream clothes. What do you want? Gu Xingyin grabbed her bag and calmly asked. I have money in my bag. If you want, I can give it all to you. The leader, Little Yellow Hair, sized her up from head to toe and snorted. Such a sensible little sister is rare nowadays. Normally, if we were in a good mood, we might have let you go. Unfortunately, someone paid us to teach you a lesson today. What did I just hear? Who dares to make things difficult for someone under my, Gu Shirley's protection? An arrogant voice rang out. When the yellow-haired man heard this voice, his heart skipped a beat. He looked up and saw Gu Shirley standing there with a large group of people, staring at him coldly. How did he offend this ancestor? A smile quickly appeared on the yellow-haired man's face. This is all a misunderstanding. I didn't know that this was the person you were looking after, Miss Gu. It's a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding. Gu Shirley sneered. Do you believe that even if I leave you with a leg today, it will be a misunderstanding tomorrow? The yellow-haired man knew that it was impossible for him to walk out of here peacefully. He gritted his teeth, raised his hand, and slapped himself hard. I was blind. After slapping himself, he looked at Gu Shirley and saw that the other party's expression was indifferent and didn't say anything. He hardened his heart and slapped himself hard in the face again. After slapping himself more than 20 times, both sides of the yellow-haired man's face were swollen beyond recognition. It was obvious that this person was very harsh on himself and didn't hold back at all. Stop. Gu Shirley finally spoke and looked at him. I'm in a good mood today. You take your people back. Whatever the person behind the scenes told you to do to my sister Chang Xian, you'll pay her back in full. Do you understand? The yellow-haired man acted as if he had been granted amnesty and hurriedly took him away from here. Chapter 531. Gu Xingyin took her school bag and walked in front of Gu Shirley. Thank you, big sister Shirley. Gu Shirley glared at her in annoyance. How do you know that someone wants to deal with you? Gu Xingyin giggled and said, I can predict the future. Gu Xingyin rolled her eyes and didn't keep asking. She just said, be careful, you have to tell me if there's anything, okay? Gu Xingyin nodded. The next day, Qing Luochen didn't come to school. On the third day on the school's forum on Lin City's official forum, Qing Luochen's nude photos were anonymously posted. The beautiful girl was stripped of her clothes and covered her body as she sat in the dark alley. Her expression revealed deep despair and fear. Her body was very white and there were purple bruises on it. The surrounding environment was incomparably gloomy, and under the contrast, it created a kind of tyrannical beauty in people's hearts. Lin City's third high school exploded. No one thought that the people around them would encounter this kind of thing. Gu Xingyin didn't have any pity for Qing Luochen, because these were things that Qing Luochen had told those people to use on her. Qing Luochen was better than Chang Xian in the original plot. Those hoodlums were probably scared by Gu Shirley and didn't dare do anything else. At least her innocence was saved. Although like this, there wasn't much difference between saving it and not saving it. When Gu Shirley came to find Gu Xingyin, her expression wasn't very good. She thought that the grudges between students would just be a small lesson and a few slaps. She didn't think that the other side would be so ruthless. What deep grudge do you have with her? Gu Shirley asked. Gu Xingyin had an innocent look. You know, big sister Shirley, the only interaction between me and Qing Luochen is Huang and Yuan. I'm the victim, all right? Gu Shirley thought that if Gu Xingyin didn't find her that day, then the person who suffered this kind of thing would be her. Her heart was filled with rage. If I knew that Qing Luochen was this ruthless, I would have just returned the favor. It really is too easy on her. Gu Shirley hatefully said. Since their daughter had encountered such a thing, Qing Luochen's family of course called the police. Those hooligans didn't dare to betray Gu Shirley, so they had to take the blame themselves. He said that he didn't like this girl, so he wanted to teach her a lesson. It was just a small joke. A small joke? The policeman in charge of the interrogation looked at the hooligans with a gaze as sharp as a sword. But the little hoodlums weren't afraid of this. They didn't do anything to hurt Qing Luochen. Adding in the fact that he was in the underworld, he had some connections. At most he would stay in there for a year or so. Who would have thought that Qing Luo-chen wouldn't give up at all? When she encountered this kind of thing, she became hysterical. When the police came to her for evidence, she insisted that it was Chang Xian who did it. Why did it involve another person? The police found that something was wrong and asked carefully, but Qing Luo-chen stuttered. In the end, the truth was revealed. It turned out that this girl was reaping what she sowed. Originally, she was the one who hired people behind the scenes. The things that she suffered now should have all fallen onto another girl. What a vicious heart. Chapter 532. Was this the so-called retribution? The policewoman in charge of the interrogation was very sympathetic towards Qing Luo-chen. After all, she was only a 17-year-old girl, and she suddenly encountered such an unfortunate thing. But after knowing the truth, her impression of Qing Luo-chen fell to the bottom. Even her attitude was clearly cold. As for Qing Luo-chen's parents, they were completely frightened by their daughter. How could their beautiful, smart, and obedient daughter do such a thing? But no matter what, she was still their only daughter. If that girl called Chang Xian really took revenge after finding out the truth, they couldn't help but seek justice for their daughter. Gu Xingyin was called out by the class teacher during class. There were several uniformed policemen in the office. Gu Xingyin didn't know what to do. The two policemen wanted to maintain their prestige as policemen, but seeing that the other side was such a small deer-like girl, their faces couldn't help softening. Gu Xingyin's nervous gaze, the policewoman's voice was very gentle. You are Chang Xian, right? Don't be afraid, we just came to ask you a few questions. Gu Xingyin's class teacher also said, I know this child Chang Xian very well. She is very pure, she definitely wouldn't do such a thing. Gu Xingyin slowly calmed down and suddenly asked, You want to ask me about Qing Luo-chen? The two policemen looked at each other, and it was still the policewoman who spoke. Can you tell us what happened that day? Gu Xingyin nodded. That day after school, I went to find one of my senior sisters. I'm timid and heard my classmates say that Qing Luo-chen is a petty person who likes to take revenge on others. I was a bit scared and had her follow me for this period of time. Then we met those hooligans. Big sister Shirley looked very angry and scolded those hooligans. Then she told them to teach the person who wanted to teach me a lesson. Gu Xingyin said this and her body trembled slightly. We all thought that she just wanted to beat me up, I never thought that. She couldn't continue, but her eyes were filled with fear. The two policemen looked at Gu Xingyin's haggard face, and knew that she must have been scared out of her wits these past few days. That's right, if it weren't for the sudden turn of events that day, these things would have fallen on her. After asking all the questions they wanted to ask, they left the school. Speaking of which, this matter had nothing to do with this girl named Chang Xian. She was at best a victim. Qing Luo-chen reaped what she sowed. The news that Gu Xingyin was called away by the police was quickly spread by the students in the class. The people in the school quickly found out that the second-year school beauty Qing Luo-chen was completely reaping what she had sown. She originally wanted to deal with Chang Xian, but in the end, she was the one who got retribution. The students who were full of sympathy for Qing Luo-chen now had looks of disdain when they talked about her. Not only did she steal her boyfriend, she even planned to ruin her. How could there be such a vicious person in this world? Qing Luo-chen's reputation was completely ruined in the entire Lin City 3rd High School. It was impossible for her to stay in Lin City 3rd High School. Chapter 533. Gu Xingyin specially went to look for Gu Shirley because of this. She was a little uneasy. The police came to the school to look for me today. Sister Shirley, will we be okay? Gu Shirley smiled. Don't worry. This matter has nothing to do with us. Even if it does, I can make it have nothing to do with us. Gu Xingyin actually had some understanding of Gu Shirley's background. With her father's secret power and status, no one in Lin City dared to touch her. Gu Shirley rubbed Gu Xingyin's head. Don't worry. Your sister Shirley is here. Nothing will happen to him. Look at you. You haven't slept well these days, right? You have dark circles under your eyes. Gu Xingyin smiled helplessly. She did this on purpose. However, she wasn't the only one who was worried. After knowing what happened at school, Mr. and Mrs. Chong were the ones who were the most worried. They didn't know that something so thrilling had happened to their daughter. If she had almost, that girl was going to destroy their Xian. Mr. Chong had work and couldn't leave. Mrs. Chong simply accompanied her daughter to and from school these few days. She really couldn't be at ease. She also learned that the girl in Xuanxuan's school had done this to Xian because of Huang Anyuan. Even though Mr. and Mrs. Chong knew in their hearts that this matter couldn't be blamed on Huang Anyuan, they couldn't help but feel a little angry at him. If Huang Anyuan hadn't provoked her, would this have happened? Mrs. Chong accompanied Gu Xingyin to school for half a month. After much persuasion, Gu Xingyin finally persuaded her not to send her tomorrow. However, after school the next day, Gu Xingyin saw an unexpected person at the school gate. Genius Lu. Gu Xingyin greeted him in surprise. "Don't you have class today?" Gu Xingyin asked curiously. School had just ended. Although number 1 high school wasn't very far from number 3 high school, it would still take some time to walk there. Under normal circumstances, Lu Yu wouldn't have arrived at number 3 high school's gate at this time. Lu Yu looked at her gently. "I'm waiting for you." What he didn't tell her was that ever since he heard about Qing Luochen's matter, he had been worried about her. Every day when she went to school, he would personally come over to see her enter the school, or be taken away by her parents. Only then would he be at ease. Today, when she didn't see her mother accompanying her to school, he took the initiative to appear at the school gate of the 3rd high school. Gu Xingyin tilted her head. "Why are you waiting for me? Do you want me to treat you to a meal?" Lu Yu smiled. "If you didn't mention it, I would have forgotten that you still owe me a meal." All right, I'll treat you to dinner today. I'll call my mom first." Gu Xingyin took out her phone. At a time like this, if she did not inform Nanny Chong that she would be home late, Nanny Chong would be worried to death. Sure enough, Mrs. Chong, who received the call, asked a lot of questions. In the end, she was relieved after confirming that she was treating a good friend to a meal and promised that the other party would send her back. "Let's go. But today, I may have to trouble you to send me home." Gu Xingyin smiled slyly. "All right." Lu Yu looked at her curved eyes and thought to himself, "Even if you don't say it, I still want to see you get home safely." After dinner, Lu Yu sent Gu Xingyin to the door. "I'm here. Genius Lu, goodbye." Gu Xingyin waved at Lu Yu. "I'll wait for you here tomorrow morning." Lu Yu said this and didn't wait for Gu Xingyin to react before he turned to leave. Chapter 534. Lu Yu quickened his footsteps to leave so that he could hide the redness in his ears. There was another reason. He was afraid of Gu Xingyin's rejection. What if she did not want to be with him every day? What he did not know was that Gu Xingyin, who was behind him, saw his slightly messy footsteps and burst out laughing. When she returned home, Mrs. Chong, who had been waiting in the living room, quickly came up to her and looked at her daughter carefully. She was relieved when she saw that there was nothing wrong with her. "Who is the friend who sent you home today?" Mrs. Chong asked curiously. Gu Xingyin replied, "I met him when I went to the capital to participate in the physics competition. He is a top student from number 1 middle school. I won the 2nd prize and he won the 1st prize." She thought that Mrs. Chong did not know Lu Yu. Unexpectedly, Mrs. Chong immediately reacted when she heard her words. "Is he the one from number 1 middle school called Lu Yu?" Gu Xingyin added, "Yes, Lu Yu." A smile appeared on Mother Chang's face. "This young man is handsome and energetic." Gu Xingyin looked at her and thought that she was quite familiar with Lu Yu. "Mom, how do you know him?" Mrs. Chong said, "Didn't he appear on our lynching TV station a few times? At our age, who doesn't know him with children in school?" She looked at Gu Xingyin as she said, "You are friends with that child? When you're free tomorrow, invite him over for a meal." She did not feel that there was anything wrong with her daughter being friends with a boy. Gu Xingyin could only attribute this to the power of a top student. She nodded. "Then I will ask him." The next morning, when Gu Xingyin went to school, she saw Lu Yu standing under a tree not far from the neighborhood. He was wearing a white shirt and had his hands in his trouser pockets. She did not know what he was writing with his head lowered. Gu Xingyin saw a few girls who passed by secretly looking at him. "Morning." Gu Xingyin greeted him. Lu Yu turned around and a faint smile appeared on his handsome face. Morning. Gu Xingyin stuck her tongue out. I thought you were joking yesterday. I didn't expect you to really come. Lu Yu chuckled and shook his head. He said in a low voice, Why would I joke with you? Gu Xingyin did not hear clearly and asked in confusion, What? Lu Yu shook his head. Gu Xingyin looked at him and asked, Have you had breakfast? Actually, Lu Yu had already eaten. There was an auntie at home who made breakfast. However, when he heard Gu Xingyin's question, he suddenly hesitated and shook his head. Gu Xingyin frowned. How can you skip breakfast? How about this? I'll tell my mom tomorrow to make more breakfast in the future. I'll bring it to you. Let me tell you, my mom's cooking is very good. Lu Yu listened to the girl beside him chattering all the way. He felt that the whole morning seemed to have brightened up with her lively voice. Goodbye, top student Lu. Gu Xingyin stopped and said to Lu Yu. They arrived at school. Lu Yu did not say goodbye. He only replied, See you in the afternoon. Gu Xingyin turned around and walked into the school. She couldn't stop the smile on her face. How could she not have heard what he said? However, she really enjoyed the feeling of being carefully cared for and protected. Chapter 535. Today was destined to not be a peaceful day. After the second class in the morning, Qing Luochen's face appeared at the door of the first class. Chang Xian, come out, I have something to ask you. The whole class quieted down in an instant. Everyone's eyes fell on Qing Luochen and Gu Xingyin, who was doing her homework outside the door. Gu Xingyin looked out the window. It was hard to imagine that the person standing outside was the beautiful Qing Luochen. Her originally round and glossy face had lost a lot of weight, and her complexion was also incomparably pale. The large coat on her body was empty, and one could see at a glance how thin and weak her body was under the clothes. Of course, no matter how haggard a beauty was, she still had her own charm. It seemed that these days she didn't have a good time. This was common sense. No matter who it was, they wouldn't have a good time after encountering this kind of thing. The current Qing Luochen was like a lone wolf in a desperate situation. No one knew what she would do. Gu Xingyin didn't plan to let herself be cannon fodder. Under everyone's gaze, Gu Xingyin shook her head at Qing Luochen, who was outside the window. This was a rejection. The students of the first class could understand her actions. If it was them, they wouldn't want to see this person for the rest of their lives. Seeing Gu Xingyin completely ignoring her, Qing Luochen was a little surprised. She said in a sharp voice, I know some secrets about Huang Anyuan, don't you want to know? Gu Xingyin secretly laughed. Qing Luochen had no other choice in order to make her leave. She even said this kind of thing. It was a pity. She secretly laughed. Huang Anyuan's secret, what did it have to do with her? She simply took out a pair of headphones from the desk and stuffed them into her ears, showing her rejection to Qing Luochen. Seeing her childish action, many people in the first class couldn't help laughing. A few people who didn't like Qing Luochen directly said, Xian doesn't want to talk to you. We're going to class, you should leave. Qing Luochen looked at Gu Xingyin with some resentment and left unwillingly. No one thought that this would be the last time they would see Qing Luochen. When she woke up from her afternoon nap, Gu Xingyin heard the news of Qing Luochen falling off the building. It was said that she jumped from the 6th floor of the school library. By the time the ambulance arrived, she was already dead. In the pocket of Qing Luochen's white coat, there was a blood-stained suicide note. The letter was filled with tears of blood. In the end, Qing Luochen used a hateful tone to express that the biggest reason she chose to die was because of Huang Anyuan. Some of Huang Anyuan's classmates said that during lunch, Qing Luochen went to find Huang Anyuan, and the two of them had an argument at the end of the corridor. They could faintly hear Huang Anyuan calling her dirty and vicious. After that, no one knew where the two of them went. Huang Anyuan returned to the classroom during lunch break, and in less than an hour, the news of Qing Luochen's suicide came out. He used his own death to take revenge on others. Gu Xingyin shook her head. It really was a young life. She would never know that her revenge against Huang Anyuan would only be a nightmare for 1 or 2 months at most. It would be a painful memory of her youth that would be recalled many years later. The ones who were really hurt and engraved in her heart were her parents who raised her for 17 years. The way you hurt yourself, you could only take revenge on the people who cared about you the most. Chapter 536. Gu Xingyin saw Qing Luochen's parents from afar. It was a middle-aged couple who were well-dressed. But at this moment, when they heard the news of their daughter's death, there was only panic and pain left on their faces. The teachers in charge of each class strictly forbade the students from discussing this matter, and the library became a forbidden area. Gu Xingyin wasn't in the mood to watch the fun. After school, she immediately saw Lu Yu, who was waiting not far from the school gate. Lu Yu looked at her with a worried expression. "Are you all right?" Gu Xingyin shook her head. "How could anything happen to me?" Lu Yu relaxed. When he heard that something happened in the third school, that a girl had jumped off the building, and that girl was Qing Luochen, his first reaction was, I don't know if Xian was scared. It was a good thing that she seemed to be in a good state. If it was any other girl, they would have been scared. Lu Yu's thoughts moved and his hand grabbed Gu Xingyin's hand faster than he thought. Gu Xingyin was startled and looked at him with a bit of surprise. Lu Yu looked over with a faint smile. "I was very worried about you." Gu Xingyin was stunned by this smile, and didn't pull her hand back. Lu Yu felt the soft touch in his hand, and saw the red ears of the girl beside him from the corner of his eyes. His mood was unprecedentedly clear. "See you tomorrow." When they arrived, Gu Xingyin said in a small voice with a slightly red face, "Goodbye." Lu Yu let go of her hand. Gu Xingyin jogged up the stairs. Lu Yu looked at her and couldn't help revealing a smile. In the days that followed, there was an unspeakable tacit understanding between the two of them. They would go to school together, and would go out to play occasionally during the holidays. They would also leave each other a message when something happened. No one said the words that were hidden in their hearts. Gu Xingyin and Lu Yu maintained this kind of relationship of more than friends, but not yet lovers. However, between the two of them, no matter who it was, they had to admit that there was a feeling that no one else could interfere. When Gu Xingyin entered her second year of university, Huang Anyuan transferred schools. On one hand, it was public opinion. Even though the police had confirmed that Qing Luochen's death was a suicide, in everyone's eyes, it was still related to Huang Anyuan. On the other hand, he was going to move. In the past year, Father Huang's business had been having all kinds of problems, and the family's assets were also being depleted. They knew that this was Qing Luochen's parents' revenge on their family. Father Huang had thought of resisting and calling the police. However, every time it would only last for 3 days. What followed was even worse trouble. The Huang family compromised. He couldn't afford to offend them. The entire Hua nation was so big, and there were bound to be places that he couldn't reach. Huang Anyuan came to look for Gu Xingyin. Gu Xingyin had not seen Huang Anyuan for almost a year. She almost didn't recognize the person in front of her. In the past, Huang Anyuan was handsome, confident, young and energetic, with a kind of vigor that only belonged to teenagers. However, the boy standing in front of Gu Xingyin now, he was wearing a half-new jacket, his face was gloomy, his eyes were no longer as spirited as before, and there was even stubble on his chin that hadn't been shaved. He was simply a different person from the past Huang Anyuan. Gu Xingyin couldn't help thinking that if the Qing Luochen in the past saw this Huang Anyuan, she probably wouldn't even look at him. Chapter 537. Xian, I'm leaving Lin City. Huang Anyuan looked at the girl in front of him. In fact, the two of them had nothing to do with each other. He didn't know why he had to see her before he left. After seeing her, he realized that the two of them, who used to have a tacit understanding, no longer had anything in common. Okay, Gu Xingyin replied faintly. There was a long period of relative silence. Xian, will we still be in touch in the future? Huang Anyuan suddenly asked. The girl in front of him was one of the most important people in his life for the first 10 years. However, the feelings that he had accumulated for more than 10 years were exhausted in less than a year. Gu Xingyin rejected him without hesitation. It's better not. There's nothing we can say to each other. We can't be lovers, but we can be friends. Gu Xingyin said word by word. Being strangers is the best relationship we can have. Okay. Huang Anyuan smiled bitterly. She couldn't forgive him after all. Then I wish you happiness in the future, Huang Anyuan said softly. Huang Anyuan said softly. Before he left, he added, when you look for a boyfriend in the future, wipe your eyes. Don't look for someone like me anymore. It's rare that you have self-awareness. Gu Xingyin answered him with silence. This was the last time Gu Xingyin saw Huang Anyuan. She didn't know where he moved to with his family. He in third high school had cut off all contact with the people around him. Even at the class reunion many years later, no one knew where he was. Gu Xingyin turned to leave and met Lu Yu at the corner. Lu Yu didn't say anything. He took Gu Xingyin's backpack with one hand and held her hand with the other hand habitually. Don't you want to ask what we talked about? Gu Xingyin asked deliberately. Lu Yu said faintly. Anyway, it's just a few words. I can guess. Oh. Gu Xingyin's interest was piqued. Make a guess. Lu Yu looked at her. If I guess correctly, how are you going to reward me? Gu Xingyin hesitated for a moment. She needed a reward for this? Lu Yu's eyes flashed as he said, how about this? If I guess correctly, you have to agree to a request of mine. How about it? This kind of seemingly simple promise was often a trap. Gu Xingyin looked at him warily. Lu Yu looked at her round eyes and said, don't worry, there won't be any mischief. It will be very easy. You just have to nod and you can do it. Really? Gu Xingyin was suspicious. It's true. Lu Yu nodded solemnly. Well then you can guess. I don't believe that you can really guess anything. Lu Yu looked at her with a smile and spoke softly. The more she listened, the bigger Gu Xingyin's eyes became. Did you eavesdrop on our conversation? Lu Yu spread his hands innocently. I was standing at the corner the whole time. You know, it's impossible to hear from that distance. Then why did you? Gu Xingyin was curious. Lu Yu smiled but didn't say anything. This is my secret. Silly, of course it's because I spent a lot of effort to understand you. I even tried to investigate that guy, because I was jealous that he occupied the first 15 years of your life. Chapter 538. The second year of high school ended, and the third year of high school began. She was very busy every day with all kinds of exams, papers, and homework. The walk home with Lu Yu every day became the most relaxing part of Gu Xingyin's life. The two of them did not hide their behavior, and everyone could see the intimacy between the two of them. However, perhaps it was because the two of them were too calm, or perhaps it was because of the warm and enviable atmosphere between the two of them. No one felt that there was anything wrong with the two of them being together. On the 7th and 8th of June, Gu Xingyin walked out of the examination hall and looked up at the dazzling white sunlight. She wiped her sweat and walked out of the school. The first thing she saw was Mr. and Mrs. Chang, who had been waiting for her for a long time. Mrs. Chang handed her daughter the green bean soup she had prepared and said with concern, "You must be tired." She did not mention the exam at all. Gu Xingyin drank the sweet green bean soup and exhaled contentedly. "I'm fine." She meant what she said. After all, she was not as worried and anxious as a real examinee. She was confident about her results this time. But even so, Gu Xingyin still slept at home for 2 days after returning home after the exam. After that, there were all kinds of class gatherings, girlfriends' gatherings, and thanking parties. There were also confessions. Even Gu Xingyin received 2 unsolicited confessions from 2 boys in the same class. These youthful students seemed to want to make up for all the regrets they had in the 3 years of high school in just over 10 days. When everything calmed down, Gu Xingyin then realized that she had not seen Lu Yu for more than 10 days. Mrs. Chang suddenly spoke during dinner one day. "Xian, the college entrance examination is over. When are you going to bring that boy named Lu Yu back for us to meet?" Gu Xingyin looked up at her parents and realized that they had known about her relationship with Lu Yu for a long time. Other than herself and Lu Yu, everyone else thought of them as a couple. Who knew that there had not even been a confession between the two of them? But who made the rule that they had to say those 3 words to be considered a couple? "Let's talk about it when the time comes," Gu Xingyin replied vaguely. Looking at her daughter, Nanny Chang felt relieved. At that time, Xian did not allow her to send her to school, but how could she be at ease? She had secretly followed her many times, afraid that something bad would happen to her. Thus, she discovered Lu Yu, the boy that all the mothers in Lin City, including herself, liked very much. She watched as he sent Xianxian to school. The two of them were very close. Moreover, he was sent from year 1 to year 3. Her children and grandchildren would have their own blessings. Mother Chang had also gotten over it. Lu Yu seemed to be a very good boy, so she didn't have to worry about Xianxian. Gu Xingyin sent a message to Lu Yu that night. Are you there? If you're free tomorrow, let's have a meal together. Soon the other side replied, okay, time and place. Gu Xingyin thought about it and decided on a place. Good night. She typed these 2 words. Lu Yu's reply was very prompt, good night. Gu Xingyin couldn't help but smile. She switched off her cell phone and fell asleep. Chapter 539. The next day, Gu Xingyin put in a lot of effort to dress up. The place she chose was a small park in Lin City. It was not very big and there were no amusement parks or other entertainment facilities, so there were relatively few people, but the environment was very beautiful. It was a sacred place for couples to date. When she arrived at the meeting place, there were still more than 10 minutes before the appointed time, but Lu Yu was already there waiting. They had not seen each other for more than 10 days, but there was no unfamiliarity between them, nor was there much excitement. Their relationship had always been like this. It was neither hot nor cold, but it flowed steadily. The two walked slowly along the path, occasionally talking about topics that interested each other. When they reached the lakeside, the two of them stopped at the same time. Which university are you going to apply to? Which university are you going to apply to? The two of them said at the same time. Gu Xingyin couldn't help but chuckle. Lu Yu also curled his lips. Me? My dream has always been to go to Capital University. Gu Xingyin said Changxian's dream. It was not only Changxian's dream, but also Changxian's parents had always hoped for their daughter. Gu Xingyin did not want to let them down. Capital University was one of the best universities in the country, and the admission cutoff was also a high level that ordinary students could not reach. Of course, with Changxian's grades, there was no problem at all. What about you? Lu Yu smiled softly. He looked at Gu Xingyin and said, I plan to follow in your footsteps. Wherever Xianxian goes to, I will go to the same university. His words of love were so unexpected. Gu Xingyin was stunned for a moment, and a thin layer of red slowly rose on her face. Lu Yu looked at this rare beauty without blinking. 3 years had passed, and the girl's face and body, who was about to become an adult, had begun to grow. She was like a fully bloomed flower, revealing amazing beauty. The baby fat on her face had disappeared, and her height had grown from 1.6 meters to 1.7 meters. Her eyebrows were delicate, and her skin was like jade. The current Changxian had already grown into a tall and elegant beauty. She no longer looked like a little girl who hadn't grown up yet. Lu Yu had no doubt that he would face many love rivals in the future. Fortunately, he was 3 years earlier than all of them. He heard her small voice. What if I fail the exam? Lu Yu smiled. Then I'll repeat it with you. Gu Xingyin didn't know whether to laugh or cry when she heard him talking about this kind of thing, as if it was child's play. If he really dared to do that, he would probably be beaten to death by his parents who had always been proud of him. Lu Yu suddenly called out to her in a very serious tone. Xianxian. Gu Xingyin seemed to have guessed something. She raised her head and met Lu Yu's eyes. For the first time in 3 years, Lu Yu unreservedly expressed the feelings in his heart. Lu Yu gazed deeply at her. You once promised me that I can make a request of you, and you can't refuse. Gu Xingyin nodded. Then, Lu Yu's eyes were filled with her. Xianxian, be my girlfriend. Gu Xingyin fell into the web of love that he had woven with deep affection. Okay. Lu Yu smiled. I'm so happy, Xianxian. I'll always remember this day. Lu Yu couldn't help but hug her tightly. Gu Xingyin had seen him smile countless times, but this was the first time she saw him smile so happily. Lu Yu looked as if he had the whole world. In Lu Yu's heart, Gu Xingyin was his whole world. Chapter 540. In the end, Gu Xingyin got into Capital University as she wished. Just as he said, Lu Yu applied for the same school as Gu Xingyin. No one was surprised by this result. During the last gathering after graduating from high school, Chang Xian's classmates even privately tugged at Gu Xingyin and said, "Genius Lu seems like a very good person. Xian, you have to hold on to him well." Gu Xingyin did not know whether to laugh or cry, but she still thanked them for their kindness. A few days before going to university, Gu Xingyin invited Lu Yu over for a meal, which could be considered as a sign of their relationship. Mr. and Mrs. Chang had a good impression of Lu Yu. He was polite, good at his studies, and considerate to Xian. Lu Yu successfully won the hearts of his future father-in-law and mother-in-law. Gu Xingyin also went to the Lu family's house. She knew that Lu Yu's family was very well-to-do. At first, she was a little worried that his parents would not be easy to get along with. Don't worry. They spend most of their time abroad and are very open-minded. When they heard that I have a girlfriend, they were very happy. Lu Yu comforted her. He did not say that they heard that he had a girlfriend, and were very curious about the girl who could make their son fall in love. They specially took a plane back to see Gu Xingyin. Lu Yu was afraid that if he said it, this girl would be even more nervous. Just as Lu Yu said, Lu Yu's parents were very friendly to her. Mother Lu even said in front of her son, "Xian, our Lu Yu's personality is a little dull, but he has a good character. Don't dislike him." Gu Xingyin could not help but cover her mouth and laugh. Lu Yu looked at his mother helplessly. "Is there anyone as capable as you to trick your son?" When school started, the two of them set off together. For years in university. As soon as they graduated, Gu Xingyin was proposed to by Lu Yu. At their wedding, many former schoolmates from number 3 high school and number 1 high school came. Everyone looked at them with sincere blessings. "Although I had expected this, I didn't think that the two of you would actually reach this stage," Zhang Yin said. There were countless couples in high school, but those who were able to walk down the aisle together and spend the rest of their lives together were less than 1 in 1,000. Lu Yu drank the wine in his cup in one gulp and said with a smile, "Then you can continue to watch. Watch the two of us walk through this life in love and happiness." "I do." When Gu Xingyin said this, all the guests applauded. Lu Yu and Gu Xingyin looked at the people below the stage. These people would be the witnesses to their happiness in the future. No one noticed that in a certain corner, there was a man in black casual clothes. He stared at the newlyweds on the stage without blinking. They exchanged vows, exchanged rings, and pledged their love for life. Huang Anyuan couldn't describe his feelings at this moment. He hadn't been to this city for many years. It was by chance that he found out about Chang Xian's marriage. At that time, he put aside everything at hand and finally rushed to the scene on the day of the wedding. He didn't know why he had to come and take a look. He didn't have any intention of destroying or being unwilling. He just wanted to take a look. He wanted to see if she was doing well or not, whether she was happy or not. Now, it seemed that she was doing well. The smile on her face couldn't lie. This was good too. The happiness that he couldn't give her would eventually be given by someone else. Chapter 541. Let's Get a Divorce. A piece of white paper with the words "Letter of Divorce" written on it was handed to Gu Xingyin. Gu Xingyin paused for a moment. Seeing that she didn't respond, the owner of the hands became impatient. He said with disdain, "Yin Ruohua, I Lu Zijuan, have no feelings for you. You can't force a melon to be sweet. Let's part on good terms." Gu Xingyin finally reacted. She raised her head and calmly sized up the man in front of her. He was wearing a white shirt and a black vest. His hair was neat and tidy. His eyes and brows were handsome. He seemed to be in his 20s. He was the fiancé of this body, the young master of the Lu family, Lu Zijuan. Seeing her calm face, Lu Zijuan was a little surprised. He thought that this woman would cry and make a fuss. But it didn't matter. Anyway, he had enough of the wife arranged by this family. Gu Xingyin suddenly laughed softly. Her laughter was extremely cold, and even full of disdain and ridicule. "Young Master Lu, you keep saying that you want a divorce. But what did you give me? Letter of divorce?" Gu Xingyin slowly tidied up the wrinkles on the sleeves. Her posture was elegant. It turns out that young Master Lu, who has received advanced education, still has the old stubborn ideas in his bones. Lu Zijuan frowned. What do you mean? Yen Ruohua, I tell you, no matter what, I will break off the relationship with you today. He suddenly thought of something and said, Are you waiting for my mother to come? Let me tell you, my mother also knows about what happened today. Don't be delusional. Just take the things and leave. Gu Xingyin sneered in her heart. The kind-looking old lady of the Lu family, huh? Yen Ruohua always thought that this mother-in-law liked her. She didn't know that when she was divorced, the old lady was watching a play in the theater outside. She raised her head and saw Lu Zijuan's impatient face. She felt sick of it. Then he walked toward his desk. What are you doing? Lu Zijuan frowned at her. What kind of trick was she playing? Gu Xingyin ignored her. She picked up the brush, dipped it in ink, and finished in one go. After she finished writing, she gently blew on the paper. When the ink was dry, she handed it to Lu Zijuan. Sign your name and we'll be even. Henceforth, we will live our own lives and not interfere with each other. At first glance, Lu Zijuan was attracted by the beautiful and elegant handwriting on the paper. This was written by Yen Ruohua. Wasn't she a wooden person who only knew how to embroider and sew? You wrote this. Gu Xingyin unceremoniously retorted. Young Master Lu, you're still so young. Do you have bad eyesight? It was obvious that he had just seen her finish writing. She knew what Lu Zijuan meant. In Lu Zijuan's heart, Yen Ruohua had always been a black and white background. When had he ever cared about what his wife would do? Lu Zijuan was mocked like this. He opened his mouth but didn't know what to say. He could only raise his head to look at the contents of the paper. A divorce letter? He looked up at Gu Xingyin in disbelief. Yes. Gu Xingyin nodded. Looking at him, she couldn't help but sneer. Young Master Lu, aren't you a self-proclaimed progressive? After you sign this divorce letter, we can be considered to have broken up peacefully. Chapter 542. It was as if Lu Zijuan had known his wife for the first time. In the few memories he had of her, every time he saw this woman, she would be wearing an old-fashioned cheongsam with a faint smile on her face. She would stand there quietly without any sense of existence. She was not sentimental and did not understand romance. She could not talk about Shelley or Hegel with him. He thought that if he handed her the divorce letter, she would cry and be unwilling, but in the end, she would still have no choice but to compromise. In the end, she would leave the Lu family in a mess and have no more care for him. But how could she be like this? He looked at Gu Xingyin carefully. Her face was still the same, but her expression was so different from his memory. There was a very bright light in her eyes, and her whole person became incomparably vivid. He had never found that his wife was such a great beauty. Young Master Lu, if there is no problem, hurry up and sign it. Gu Xingyin saw that he was only staring at her, and urged impatiently. Lu Zijuan came to his senses and looked at the white paper in his hand with a moment of hesitation. Was he really going to sign it? Gu Xingyin looked at his face and decided to add fuel to the fire. Hurry up and sign it, young Master Lu. Your Lu Qingyi is still waiting for you in Yunxi class. If you don't sign it, you won't be able to get the beauty back. Right, Yunyi was still waiting for him. Lu Zijuan thought of the woman who always looked at him with affection, and his heart fell down in an instant. He picked up the pen and signed his name without hesitation. Don't forget this. Gu Xingyin took a box of red ink over. Lu Zijuan looked at her impatient appearance and couldn't help but feel depressed in his heart. It was obviously he who wanted to divorce his wife. Why did she look even more impatient than him? He put his fingerprint on it with a dark face. Okay. Young Master Lu, I will pack up my things later. You should also send someone to check out all of my dowry. I will contact someone to move it over. I, Yen Ruohua, won't take anything from the Lu family, but I'll take everything that belongs to me. Gu Xingyin was in a good mood as she put the divorce letter into the box. She didn't forget to say this. Lu Zijuan looked at a certain woman with a bright and beautiful expression, and felt very depressed in his heart. He always felt that he was the one who was dumped. He squeezed out a sentence from between his teeth. Don't worry, My Lu family won't go so far as to covet your things. Gu Xingyin smiled and said, That's good. Perhaps the young master's words were effective. Yan Ruahua's belongings were all tidied up and placed neatly in the yard. Very good. Gu Xingyin was quite satisfied with this. In the end, the Lu family was a big family. Although they weren't very good internally, they had to be decent on the surface. They wouldn't do something like embezzling a woman's dowry. At this moment, the dowry maid sent out by Gu Xingyin, Xiao Xiao, also came back. Have you found everything? Gu Xingyin asked. Xiao Xiao nodded and said, Yes, Mississippi. I followed your instructions and found a small courtyard with a single door. There are well-off people nearby, so it's very safe. I also found a car. She remembered Mrs. instructions to find a house and a car. It didn't matter if it was expensive. The key was to have a guarantee of safety. The world was not safe for two weak women outside in the future. Chapter 543. Seeing that Gu Xingyin had changed into clothes suitable for traveling, Xiao Xiao asked hesitantly, Miss, are we really not going back to the Yan family? The Yan family? In the original plot, Yan Ruahua went home as soon as she was divorced by the Lu family. But what happened? Her father treated her as the shame of the Yan family and locked her up in the most remote yard all day long, not allowing her to see any guests. Her dowry was also taken away by her mother. She was not loved and was divorced. She had no money in her hands. It was easy to imagine what kind of life Yan Ruahua was living. However, Mrs. Lin, who had watched Yan Ruahua grow up, knew the main family better. It's good that you don't go back. With master's temper, if he knows that you and the son-in-law, the young master of the Lu family, divorced, I'm afraid he will be angry. Gu Xingyin nodded and said, Let's find a place to stay first. When everything settles down, we will send a letter home. Gu Xingyin only had Xiao Xiao and Mrs. Lin to serve her. After that, she asked the servants to put all her dowry into the car. Then she got into another car and headed to the place where she had booked. Gu Xingyin closed her eyes and began to think about what would happen next. In the original plot, after Yan Ruahua was divorced and went home, her life was very bleak. She was full of talent and had a beautiful heart, but she was lonely all her life. She died of illness in her own yard in her 40s. It wasn't until many years after her death that the poetry collection, Ode to Freedom, that she wrote in that small courtyard, as well as the short story Tearful Makeup, that she used herself as a blueprint to expose the injustice of this era towards women, finally shown in the literary world. When people learned about the short and miserable life of this stunning woman, they all expressed great pity and sympathy for her. But no matter how much pity there was, it was useless for Yan Ruahua at that time. That was a long time in the future. Now that she came to this world, Gu Xingyin would not let Yan Ruahua repeat the same fate again. As for Lu Zijuan, the culprit who caused Yan Ruahua's miserable life, Gu Xingyin sneered in her heart. He claimed that he was living in a new society and hated everything left behind from the old era. Therefore he hated her, the wife chosen by his elders, very much. Therefore he advocated free love, and was madly infatuated with the actress Lu Yuni. Actors were affectionate, but actors were heartless. Lu Yuni was affectionate towards every man, but because she had seen so many men abandon their wives for her, she was stingy with her true feelings towards every man. She had said to Lu Zijuan, If you divorce your wife, I'll be with you. It was just a joke. She said it casually, but Lu Zijuan took it seriously. When Lu Zijuan left Yan Ruahua and went to find Lu Yuni excitedly, she was drinking in another man's arms with a smile. Of course, Lu Zijuan was unwilling. He wanted to win back Lu Yuni's heart. However, although the Lu family was powerful, there were many more families in Cloud City that were more powerful than the Lu family. Lu Zijuan's leg was broken by one of Lu Yuni's men, and he was carried back to the Lu family. The business of the Lu family was also suppressed by its rivals in the business circle, and the situation was getting worse and worse. Lu Zijuan's father fell ill in a hurry, and the head of the family was replaced by Lu Zijuan, who only knew how to talk on paper. The result could be imagined. In just 3 years, the Lu family, which used to be a rich and powerful family, had to sell their ancestral property to barely survive. Gu Xingyin only wanted to say one word about such an ending: retribution. Chapter 544. Lin Mingya and Lin Mingya arrived at the rented yard. The owners of the house were already waiting for them. They were an old couple in their 50s. Seeing Gu Xingyin's posture, they hesitated for a moment. Gu Xingyin said with a smile, "We moved here from North City not long ago. I happen to be studying here, so I rented the yard in advance. My family will come over in a few days, so I brought a little more than usual." Of course, Lin Mingya couldn't tell them that she lived alone with 2 servants. Although this family looked nice, she didn't know what they were thinking. It would be bad if they had any bad intentions. Sure enough, after hearing Lin Mingya's words, the mistress smiled and said, "No wonder you brought so many things. It turns out that you are moving. My wife and I are also going to move in with our son. That's why this courtyard is empty." The 2 sides quickly negotiated the price. Gu Xingyin rented it for a whole year. Both sides signed the agreement. Gu Xingyin asked Xiao Xiao to pay the money, and the procedures were completed. "Miss, what are we going to do in the future?" Xiao Xiao was actually a little confused. She only knew how to do one thing since she was a child, even if it was to serve Yenruahua. Now that she suddenly moved out, she felt a little lost. Mrs. Lin rolled her eyes at her. "You will serve Miss like how you used to serve her." Gu Xingyin actually didn't know what to do at the moment. She knew a lot of things, but she didn't know what to do in this world. The simplest and most comfortable way was to do nothing. Yenruahua's dowry was enough for her and her servants to live a comfortable life for the rest of their lives. Lin Mingya only needed to eat, drink, and have fun. Then she could publish what Yenruahua had written. Naturally, she could win a good reputation. But in this way, what was the meaning of her coming to this world? Before Yenruahua died, what she regretted most was that she didn't have the courage to resist when she was divorced. When she was neglected by her family, she chose to endure. She was full of talent, but she was imprisoned in this small yard for the rest of her life. She had almost never fought for her own life. If she couldn't let Yenruahua live a wonderful life without regrets, why did Gu Xingyin have to come here? Wait a minute. Eat, drink, and be merry. Gu Xingyin's eyes lit up. This was not a bad idea. She vaguely had some plans for the future. Yunxi class. Lu Yuni, the #1 cyan dress girl in Yunxi class who was famous for her beauty in Yunqing, was singing the song Drunken Imperial Concubine on the stage. What was different from the past was that she only had one audience this time. Lu Yunyi gently waved her sleeves. Her gentle and affectionate eyes were affectionately looking at the young man sitting on the yellow pearwood chair. The man had a sharp gaze, a high nose bridge, and his thin lips were tightly pursed. His military uniform was meticulous, and the buttons of his uniform were tightly fastened all the way to the top. He sat upright on the chair. He did not have any reaction to Lu Yuni's teasing. When the song was over, Lu Yuni got off the stage. She was still in her complicated costume. She bowed to the man and said in a mellow voice, "I'm Lu Yuni. Greetings to young Marshal Huangfu." She raised her head and happened to meet Huang Fuqi's eyes. In just a moment, she seemed to be surrounded by endless coldness and murderous intent. Her face under the heavy makeup suddenly turned pale, and her body even began to tremble uncontrollably. This man was too terrible. Chapter 545. Huang Fuqi, Yin City's young marshal. His father, Huang Fugua, controlled the forces of 8 provinces in the entire northwest region. In this chaotic world, the one with the army was the boss. Huang Fugua could be called a local emperor. In addition to his wife, Huang Fugua also had 8 concubines. However, for some unknown reason, except for the wife who gave birth to Huang Fuqi, the only son, the other concubines all gave birth to beautiful daughters. If there were no accidents, in 100 years, the master of Yun City and even the 8 provinces in the northwest would be the person in front of her. The leader of the Yunxi class had already told Lu Yuni in private that as long as she could capture the young marshal's heart, she would not need to perform for any high-ranking officials and nobles. She could directly fly to the top of the tree. If she was lucky, she would be promoted to a concubine. Then she would really have a golden life. However, Lu Yuni secretly complained in her heart. Her charm, which had always been successful among men, seemed to be unattractive in the eyes of the young marshal. Lu Yuni. The man opposite her spoke. His voice was very low and seemed to have a strange rhythm. It was very attractive. Lu Yuni's heart trembled violently. She stood obediently with her eyes lowered. You sang well. Huang Fuqi stood up. His light green military uniform brought a gust of wind and brushed past the tip of Lu Yuni's nose. He was ready to leave. Lu Yuni bit her lip. Thinking of the leader's instructions, she couldn't help but muster up the courage to take a step forward. Young Marshal. Huang Fuqi stopped and turned to look at her. Lu Yuni looked at his flawless side profile and suddenly understood why this man was the dream man of all the women in Yun City. Young Marshal. Don't you need Yuni to serve you? The beautiful actress looked at him shyly with her naturally charming eyes and gently lowered her head. With such a beautiful face and such an alluring invitation, there were very few men who could refuse. However, the one in front of her was one. No need. Huang Fuqi turned his head and slowly walked away. Lu Yuni wanted to ask him to stay again, but unfortunately, he did not give her any chance. Not long after Huang Fuqi left, the leader of the Yunshi class, who had been waiting outside, came in. What's wrong? Haven't you always been good at dealing with men? It wasn't easy for a real crown prince to come this time, but you can't even hold him back. The class leader's heart also ached. If Lu Yuni could get close to young Marshal Mu, their Yunshi class's position in Yuncheng's theater world would truly be as stable as Mount Tai. Lu Yuni had always been used to being flattered. Naturally, she also had the temper of the red horn. Hearing this, she sneered. He doesn't like a prostitute like me. Maybe he dislikes how many people I have served in his heart. If you really want me to enter a rich family with a clean record, fine. From tomorrow onwards, I will only be in charge of the opera. Those old Master Wang and young Master Li, don't ask me to drink with them. When the leader heard this, he knew that she was angry, so he quickly smiled apologetically and said, Hey, my great-aunt Lu, I'm just worried about you. What are you angry about? Be careful not to lose your voice from anger. Lu Yuni's eyes wandered. I'm also anxious. Who doesn't know that you love me the most? As if nothing had happened before, the two of them instantly became cheerful. However, no one knew what she was thinking in her heart. Chapter 546. Gu Xingyin walks on the street. All kinds of people pass by her on the street. Miss, aren't we going shopping? Xiao Xiao is a little puzzled. Miss takes her out today, and she thinks they are going to buy something. However, Miss takes her to wander around the street all morning, but they don't buy anything. Gu Xingyin smiled and said, I came out today to go shopping in reality. That's right. She wanted to see what kind of life the people in this world, especially the women, lived. She wanted to know what they pursued and what they needed. Xiao Xiao looks at her miss in confusion. She doesn't understand the meaning of this sentence. Isn't shopping just buying things? Gu Xingyin looks at her confused look and smiles. Let's go. We've been shopping all morning. I'll take you to have a big meal. Xiao Xiao is happy to hear this. Thank you, Mississippi. The two walk to the famous Yunqing Delicacies restaurant nearby. Suddenly, there is a cry of surprise behind. Thief! Gu Xingyin turns back and sees a thin man in a black leather jacket and a cap running towards her with a lady's handbag in his hand. He seems to be a little flustered. The lady whose handbag was robbed also has a servant chasing after her. Gu Xingyin steps aside with Xiao Xiao. Then, when the thin man passes by her, she gently stretches out her leg. Poof! The thin man falls directly on his face. It's really a heavy fall. The thin man gets up quickly. Seeing that the person chasing him has already come to him, he can't run away. He looks ferocious and simply stops running. He doesn't even pick up the bag that just fell on the ground. He rushes straight to Gu Xingyin. Bitch, you spoil my fun. It seems that he wants to teach Gu Xingyin a lesson before being caught. Gu Xingyin looked at him calmly. She was not afraid at all. Although Yan Ruahua's body was weak, it was not a problem for her to display some fighting skills. Xiao Xiao was even more nervous, ready to stand in front of her miss at any time. When the skinny man's hand grabbed Gu Xingyin's shoulder, her expression turned cold, and she was about to make a move. Bang! Blood splattered in front of Gu Xingyin, some of it staining her clothes. The skinny man's hand fell limply. He couldn't care less about Gu Xingyin now. Instead, he held his right hand and wailed. Gu Xingyin sensed something and looked in a certain direction. The cold-faced man had just put away the gun in his hand. He calmly ordered the people behind him. He dares to commit theft and robbery in Yin City. Cripple one of his hands, and send him to the law enforcement department. Release him only when he becomes obedient. Someone responded to the order. Soon 2 people in military uniforms came over and took the skinny man away. The skinny man seemed to be scared when he saw the man who shot the gun. He was taken back without any resistance. After dealing with this matter, the man turned around and left. From the shooting to now, he didn't look in the direction of Gu Xingyin. Gu Xingyin looked at his back thoughtfully. "Miss, are you all right? I was really scared to death just now." Xiao Xiao finally came back to her senses, and when she saw the bloodstains on Gu Xingyin's clothes, she began to make a fuss about nothing. Chapter 547. A maid like Xiao Xiao, who has served her master since childhood, may have never seen blood in her life. She was quite frightened. Gu Xingyin comforted her. "I'm fine. Don't worry." She continued helplessly. "It seems that I can't treat you to a big meal. I'm afraid that no place dares to let me in." The world was not peaceful. Indeed, no one dared to let a person with blood in her body enter the door, even if the other party looked like a weak woman. Mississippi, a hesitant voice came from behind them. It was the madam whose handbag had been robbed. Gu Xingyin turned her head. She was far away before, so she didn't see clearly. Now she looked carefully and understood why the man chose this madam. This madam was about 30 years old. She was wearing an emerald green cheongsam and a pure white fur shawl. Emerald green was a very challenging color. If one wasn't careful, they would be overshadowed by it. But obviously, this madam didn't have such troubles. Her skin was white, and there was even no fine line on her well-maintained face. The emerald green cheongsam showed more elegance and youth on her body. Looking at her body, the thumb-sized pearl necklace and the emerald green ring on her finger, all showed that she lived a good life. This was a madam who knew how to dress up and lived a rich life. When the madam saw Gu Xingyin for the first time, she was secretly amazed by her appearance and temperament. She didn't know when there was such a lady in Yunqing. She should have known such a lady with such appearance and bearing. "Thank you for helping me just now." She saw clearly that it was Gu Xingyin who stretched out her foot and tripped the man who robbed her. She even almost suffered revenge because of this. Gu Xingyin smiled politely. "It's just a little effort." "You're welcome." She pointed to the blood on her body and smiled embarrassedly. "It's not suitable for me to stay outside for a long time." The madam apologized. "It's because of me. My house is nearby. You have to go home with me to change clothes." She laughed again. "Look at me, I forgot to introduce myself. My husband's surname is Shun, and he's a businessman. He lives nearby at 33 Baolin Street." Gu Xingyin shook her head. "That's too troublesome. My house isn't too far from here. You can just go home and change." When the madam saw Gu Xingyin's insistence, she couldn't say anything more. She just asked the servant behind her to hand over a name card. "This is my name card. My address is on it. If you have any difficulties in the future, you can come here to find me." Gu Xingyin lowered her head and thanked him. This was the other party's good intentions. If he were to refuse again, then he would be unable to tell good from bad. When they get home, Mrs. Lin is frightened to see Gu Xingyin's appearance. She hurriedly asks what happened. After listening to Xiao Zhao's story, Mrs. Lin looked at Gu Xingyin disapprovingly. "Oh my dear miss, this is not something a delicate lady like you should do. How can you be so courageous? These villains are all deranged. What if they become ruthless? Well, Mrs. Lin, go and prepare a bucket of hot water for me. I want to take a good bath to get rid of the bad luck." Gu Xingyin interrupted Mrs. Lin's nagging with a smile. Good. Mrs. Lin's eyes brighten when she hears this. Yes, it's time to get rid of the bad luck. Chapter 548. In a place that Gu Xingyin didn't know, Huang Fuqi was looking at something carefully. It was information on Yan Ruohua's childhood. Divorce? He repeated this sentence, and the corners of his mouth slowly curled up. She's got character. He thought of how the woman's expression didn't change when she saw blood splatter on her body, and a trace of admiration flashed through his eyes. A divorce seemed like something she would do. But this information, Huang Fuqi frowned. Although Yan Ruohua had read poetry and books since she was a child and had studied under famous scholars, her personality was that of a typical lady from an old society. She was so gentle that it could even be described as cowardly. Her divorce from Lu Zijuan should be the most deviant thing she had done in her life. How could a person change so much in such a short time? Could it be that she was really hurt by love, causing her temperament to change so drastically? He thought of the person he saw on the street earlier. Before he shot her, she made a gesture with her hand. She was clearly going to defend herself. Wasn't the first reaction of a young lady from a wealthy family who had lived in a mansion since she was a child to avoid such a thing? There was something wrong with this woman. Keep an eye on this woman for me. She lives. Huang Fuqi ordered his subordinates. Gu Xingyin had no idea that a certain man had become suspicious of her identity. She had been careless. She had thought that after leaving the Lu family, there would be no one who was familiar with Yan Ruohua. So her behavior had inevitably revealed some traces. Who would have thought that young Marshal Huangfu, whom she had only met once, would specially send someone to investigate her? Huang Fuqi didn't know why he was inexplicably interested in a woman. It must be because she was too suspicious. He told himself, "Host, someone has already become suspicious of your identity. Please pay attention to your personal behavior. Once your identity is suspected by many people, the host is likely to be discovered by the laws of the world and expelled." The system immediately detected some kind of information. Suspect? Gu Xingyin asked. Logically speaking, it shouldn't be. The news of her divorce from Lu Zijuan shouldn't have reached the Yan family in another city yet. Besides, the Yan family couldn't easily suspect their daughter's identity before seeing her in person. Could it be Lu Zijuan? He had never cared about what Yan Ruohua was like. Now that the two of them had nothing to do with each other, he had probably forgotten about her. Why would he think of her for no reason? The system's body kept flashing with white light. The system can only collect information, but cannot determine the other person's identity. But that night, Gu Xingyin knew who it was. Her house was being watched. As long as the system checked the identities of those people, it would be very easy to find out who sent them. It's actually him. Gu Xingyin didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She's Youngz's eyes young Marshal. S Huang Fu's. Should she say hurt? SSS hissed. During the day, he acted as if he wasn't interested in him at all, but in private he sent someone to investigate his identity. Teet heat no test hims. However, no matter how his identity changed, Gu Xingyin always believed in one thing. That was, this man would never hurt her. Chapter 549. Just take it as a security guard for free. Gu Xingyin doesn't tell Xiao Xiao and Mrs. Lin about it. On the one hand, she doesn't want them to worry. On the other hand, if they expose their whereabouts, how can she find out when Huang Fuqi's people are so secretive? It will be hard to explain at that time. The next day, Gu Xingyin starts her career. Yunqing Daily is the most popular newspaper in Yunqing. Because the Huangfu family, which is in charge of the 8 provinces in the northwest, is in Yunqing, this newspaper is also a wind vane of the 8 provinces in the northwest. Most of the articles in Yunqing Daily are about some political events, and the rest are the patriotic remarks of some famous literati, and their own political opinions. Less are some short serialized articles, and a few businessmen spend a lot of money to advertise in it. Gu Xingyin aims at Yunqing Daily. Yes, what she wants to do is to publish some small articles through Yunqing Daily. As for the content, Gu Xingyin has experienced countless worlds. She says, what do women care about most? Beauty, dress, appearance. Everything beautiful and the things that can make them beautiful. Women in this era were subjected to too many restrictions. Except for a small number of people, who have the conditions and capital to pursue beauty as they want, such as Mrs. Shun. Most women every day are in charge of everything at home, take care of children, and put up with their husband's extravagance outside. Maybe one day they will bring back a beautiful concubine. Starting from becoming beautiful, they become more confident. Gu Xingyin picked up his pen and wrote his first submission letter. She knows what Yunqing Daily is advocating now: liberation and freedom. The next day, a short article with a completely different style appeared in Yunqing Daily. The woman, whose pen name is Lin Jianke, attracted countless people at the beginning of the article. When I wrote this article, I had just divorced my husband. It's not a divorce, but a divorce. This is probably the most courageous and least regretful thing I've ever done in my life. I've never done anything wrong to him. I've never done anything wrong to my family, but he wants to divorce me because he likes a woman outside. Perhaps there was resentment and unwillingness, but more than that, there was relief. Since the monarch has no heart, I will give up. This sentence has been passed down for thousands of years, but how many people can really do it? In this era, such things were common. Even if Lu Zijuan saw it, he would not suspect that the guest was Yan Ruohua. Many of the noblewomen fell into deep thought after seeing this. Most of the reactions came from the female students who had received modern education. Well done, this is what we women should be like. You have so many women outside, but you're so picky about me. Do you really think that women are made of mud? However, in another part of the crowd, this article caused a huge uproar. This is ridiculous. A woman should have 3 obedience and 4 virtues. She was despised and abandoned by her husband's family, but she didn't feel ashamed. How could she publish such a story in the newspaper? Public morals are really degenerating day by day. This was a well-known literary giant. Who is this Lin Jianke? How can a woman who can't even win her husband's heart be so arrogant? At this time, no one knew what kind of changes this woman called Lin Jianke would bring to Yunqing and the women of the Republican Alliance in the future. Chapter 550. A stone stirred up 1,000 ripples. Just as everyone was paying attention to this forest dweller, or trying to guess who this person was, the forest dweller suddenly spoke. She suddenly disappeared without a trace. Someone even wrote a letter to Yunqing Daily to ask, but the other party just replied apologetically that they were only responsible for receiving manuscripts and publishing what they thought was valuable. They didn't know who Forest Visitor was. Even if they knew, they wouldn't reveal the author's information. Otherwise, who would dare to submit manuscripts to Yunqing Daily? Gu Xingyin didn't disappear without a trace. She just didn't publish one article after another when her popularity was at its peak like other people. Hunger marketing was an extremely effective strategy in the future. Of course, Huang Fuqi also read the newspaper. Unlike others, he was the only one other than Gu Xingyin who knew who Forest Visitor was. He was surprised by her calmness. At first, he thought that even though she had been strong-willed once in the Lu family, even though it was a divorce, which sounded better than being divorced, she was just a pitiful woman in the eyes of outsiders. She should be sad in her heart. Any woman who encountered such a thing should be sad. But looking at her writing, there was no sense of sadness at all. He only saw a free and easy feeling and a sense of relief. Her previous unhappy marriage had been a burden to her. Huang Fuqi found that the more he knew about this woman, the more he was attracted by her unusualness. She was a strange woman. At first, he just wanted to know about her because he suspected her identity. But now he wanted to know more about this person and observe her. Huang Fuqi knew that such thoughts were dangerous. If he wasn't careful, he would probably fall into it. There was no solution. A week later, people found that there was another article in Yunqing Daily. This woman seemed to be writing a diary, describing her life. Her writing style was very elegant and smooth. Even a simple daily diary was as fascinating as a humorous short story. Because of the last article, everyone was very curious about Forest Visitor, a woman who lived alone with her husband. There were even many people who admired her or hated her, who wanted to see what kind of life she was living alone. Gu Xingyin showed them the elegant life of a single aristocrat. In the short 1,000-word article, people seemed to see the image of a leisurely and elegant woman. She read and studied every day to enrich herself. She didn't need to be busy taking care of her family, and had plenty of time to dress herself up. Every day after dinner, she could take her to various places in Yincheng to walk around and exercise her body. In the end, Gu Xingyin revealed her purpose. At the end of the article, she attached a design drawing that she had drawn herself. Gu Xingyin, who had lived in various worlds, was experienced enough to be considered knowledgeable. She knew what kind of clothes looked good on her, and how to match them to bring out her temperament. In this era that had obviously just been liberated from the feudal era, the things in her mind were enough for her to easily lead the trend. It was a slightly modified cheongsam design. The most representative clothing for women in this era was the cheongsam. Gu Xingyin didn't expect to change people's aesthetic standards so quickly. Take your time. Chapter 551. The name Lin Jianke caused an uproar again. This time, it was not only her name that caused an uproar, but also the cheongsam that she had modified. Originally, some of the noblewomen in the tailor shops only thought that the dress she had drawn was very beautiful, so they wanted to try it out by themselves. But they did not expect that the effect would be so good. She had only slightly adjusted the collar and sleeves, and changed the proportion of the dress. Why did it look completely different when she wore it? Many tailors and clothing shops saw a business opportunity. They began to produce cheongsams of this style in batches according to the style. The fabric was good and the workmanship was exquisite, so the price was naturally expensive. The cheongsam that was suitable for most people was of course the cheongsam that was of good quality and cheap. A trend of improving cheongsam was set off in the entire Yun city. Now walking on the streets, one could see women wearing the latest new cheongsam. Along with this new cheongsam, the name Lin Jianke was also popular. Many people were speculating that the person who could come up with such an exquisite and simple style of dress must be smart and pure. They did not know what kind of woman her husband was infatuated with that he was willing to abandon such a first wife. What do you think this Lin Jianke is doing? How did she think that the collar could be like this? Huang Fuqi sat on the chair helplessly. His graceful and elegant mother, Madame Bai, was wearing the most popular cheongsam at this time and was talking to him. Madame Bai was the legal wife of the Huangfu kingdom, and only had one child, Huang Fuqi. However, this one son had established her unshakable position in the Huangfu kingdom's harem. At this moment, she said happily, "I really want to meet this Lin Jianke. I think she must be a beautiful and gentle lady." Huang Fuqi thought of a certain figure that he had caught a glimpse of. Beautiful and gentle? He had an inexplicable feeling of secret joy that belonged to him. He said casually, "Maybe." Just as everyone was talking about Lin Jianke, she disappeared again. Only Huang Fuqi knew that the woman was actually just strolling around Yun City, every day with her little maid. Every day, her subordinates would report that she went to a very famous place today, went to a restaurant that was said to be opened by the imperial chef of the previous dynasty tomorrow. And the day after tomorrow. Huang Fuqi could not help but want to laugh. This woman was really like what she wrote in her article. Women should know how to enjoy themselves. She was different from all the women he had met. To when the popularity of the cheongsam died down a little, Gu Xingyin estimated that it was about time and wrote another article to Yunqing Daily. This time, her article was sent directly to the chief editor's desk. The reason was that in the past half a month, the newspapers that published Lin Jianke's article and the cheongsam had been sold out. The staff of the newspaper office had worked overtime for a week and reprinted 3 times. Except for a few major events that were known to the whole country, Yunqing Daily had never sold so many copies. And Shengyin and Lin Jianke, Lin Jiao, Lin Jianke. This middle-aged chief editor was an intellectual who wore glasses. He not only had a wife who worked hard at home, but also a beautiful and affectionate woman who understood his words. He was originally very disdainful of Lin Jianke's comments, but at this time, who cares? Those who could bring him bonuses were gold nuggets. Chapter 552. This time, in addition to Gu Xingyin's usual speech about how women should live for themselves, he also published an article that lived up to everyone's expectations. This time, she also published a design she had drawn. It was still a cheongsam, but it was very different from the previous one. It was an exquisite and elegant close-fitting long dress. The design of the fishtail at the end of the dress was something that women in Yunqing had never seen before. It looked a little strange, but it had a strange beauty. This time, the people in the clothing stores learned their lesson. They hurriedly bought the newspaper and made a set according to the design in it overnight to see the effect. Then, the businessmen with a keen sense of smell immediately found a business opportunity. This dress was obviously designed for the upper-class women. No woman who went out to work every day would wear such a dress. Needless to say, the rich women who secretly paid attention to forest visitor found their own tailors and made a set. Beautiful. Although such a design had high requirements for the figure, wasn't it the same for a cheongsam? The popularity of the fishtail dress was within Gu Xingyin's expectation. After all, it was a classic design. Women were born with a sense of smell for beauty. Not long after, at the banquets of the upper-class society in Yunqing, the ladies' formal dresses were quietly replaced by fishtail dresses. Those foreigners who had always been arrogant and mocked Chinese women for only wearing cheongsams were extremely surprised and asked, "What kind of dress is this?" Then, some rich women in Yunqing proudly told them that it was designed by the designer of Yunqing. Gu Xingyin wanted such an effect. What she wanted was not only to be published in the newspaper every half a month or every other time. She was waiting for someone to take the initiative to come to her. Soon that person showed up. Because the person didn't know Gu Xingyin's identity, he directly sent a letter to Gu Xingyin by writing to Yunqing Daily. Yunqing Daily sent the letter to the mailbox where the remuneration was distributed every time. It was a clothing factory. They expressed their interest in Gu Xingyin's designs and were willing to cooperate with her. They were also willing to give her 30% of the profits. All the materials and labor costs would be borne by them, and Gu Xingyin would receive 30% of the profits. Such conditions were quite generous. This boss had a good eye for business and had the guts to gamble. He was the first businessman to extend an olive branch to Gu Xingyin, and it was highly likely that he would be the one to give the designer the most profit. Gu Xingyin knew how much risk the other party had to take. Because of this, she admired such a businessman even more. Furthermore, she glanced at his name card. His surname was Shun. Shun Yuanxing and his wife came to an elegant tea house in Yunqing early in the morning. He had been in a good mood these days because the mysterious Ms. Lin Jianke had agreed to cooperate with him, and they had agreed to meet here at 2 o'clock in the afternoon for a detailed discussion. He was probably the first person to know Lin Jianke's true identity. He was a little excited when he thought about it. Considering that the other party was a lady, he was afraid that she would feel uncomfortable. He also took his wife with him. What kind of person do you think she will be? Mrs. Shun was wearing the modified cheongsam that had been very popular since it came out. She was also very curious about Lin Jianke. "Are the two of you Mr. and Mrs. Shun?" A gentle voice sounded. "You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.